Precure is one of the biggest magical girl shows out there. It's got pretty outfits, strong themes, and a lot of great action. But despite the series' success with children, what happens when the show tries to write for adults? You see, Precure is a pretty good baby show, but just an okay adult show. The series' first venture into older audiences was Otona Precure, which tackled human selfishness through the lens of climate change. Quite a bold premise. And while that crashed and burned, Mirai Days barely left the ground. I hadn't heard much from the fandom about this series, and now that I've seen it, I kinda get why. Mahou Tsukai Precure followed two girls becoming witches, and the adult series is just that. But worse, it's boring now. So how did they turn a pretty shaky season into something slightly worse? Let's examine why Mirai Days was merely mid. Mahou Tsukai Mirai Days follows the titular team saving civilians around their city. Mirai is flying around as a college girl, while Liko is a magic professor. However, both girls meet in the human world to face a new threat. This time, our villain is Ire, a man who can see into the past and the future. He gives the girls access to these visions, which plague them for the rest of the series. There's a theme around time's cruelty, with a focus on aging and regret. While time marches forward, the series' villain wants to go back to the good old days. This theme applies to the series itself, nothing more than a trip down memory lane. While I did enjoy watching it, it's hard to say that Mirai Days did anything spectacular, so let's explore the little good that it had. The series begins with a short recap before we meet Mirai in the present. She's flying on a broom to save people from a burning building. We then cut to Liko in the magical world, explaining the fundamentals of magic. This is a great way to show where both girls are and explain the series' lore. Mirai uses the water from a lake to put out the fire and saves the old lady inside. Beyond giving us exposition, the first scene is really compact. It shows us where each girl is, what they can do, and their personalities. Mirai is kind and earnest, while Liko is more restrained and analytical. It's good setup. The next big scene features Mother Rapapa, the goddess of the world. She's also the girl's teammate, Cure Felice, aka Ha. If you haven't watched Mahou Tsukai, trust me, it's not as complicated as it sounds. A mysterious man, Ire, uses a lamp to absorb her power and shows it to his dog. Strange. After some time at Mirai's college, a bear monster appears and it's time for action. In the scuffle, Liko appears and the two transform for the first time in years. It's a really beautiful sequence. All the new transformations are really cool. The speed does lessen the impact of some shots, but overall it's nice and clean. Once the girls win the fight, Ire shares a prophecy of his next return and leaves. At the end of the episode, a young girl emerges, one with a striking resemblance to their teammate Ha. There's a lot of mystery set up in this first episode. How does the villain know the future? Why are monsters coming back? What's up with his dog? And why does this mysterious girl with green hair look so much like Ha? All will be answered in due time, so let's explore how the series tackles each of these mysteries. Ha and Hii are central to the series' plot. Hii takes Ha-chan's place as the duo's child and gives us a lot of wholesome family moments. I didn't take too many notes on her while watching, but I do think most of her scenes are pretty fine. I think it adds levity to what turns out to be a pretty dark plot, so I'm glad she was included. When Mirai and Liko meet the girl, she doesn't have any of her memories, but she does know that she needs to be with them. They name her Hisui after the shade of green in her hair, and we'll be calling her Hii-chan, which is her nickname. At first, Hee-chan is pretty sad that she can't use magic because everyone keeps saying she looks like Ha-chan, a legendary magician. The pressure of being compared to a literal goddess weighs on her, and it's something she carries alone for a while because everyone is too busy protecting her. It's clear that Hee-chan is important to the magical world, having some connection to their goddess, but she's also just a child. She doesn't understand why she can't go with her moms on missions or use magic like they do. It's a really emotional subplot early on, and the kind of stuff I wish we got more of. After a magical growth spurt, Hee-chan starts insisting that she's not a child and wants to be taken more seriously. The girls do their best to understand, but her feelings reach a breaking point during a trip to the park. The girls are looking for a lost cat when Liko spots someone watching them. She pursues the figure only to discover that it's her father. See, despite Liko's status as a legendary magician, her father will always be worried about her. No matter how old or powerful you get, you will always be a child to your parents. Liko pushes back against their father, but Hee-chan interrupts. If Liko doesn't like being treated like a kid, then why should she? It's a pretty valid argument for a child. In her strangest character moment yet, Liko lets go of Hee-chan and just lets her run off into the park. It's pretty irresponsible, and what's worse is Hee-chan immediately runs into the main villain, Ayer. A fight breaks out and the girls get absolutely wrecked. They beg Hee-chan to run away so they can protect her, and Ayer jokes that they're not her parents. This knowledge gives Hee context on the girls' actions. They weren't being mean to her when they wouldn't let her go on missions, they were just trying to protect her, and now she's going to protect them. Manifesting the goddess Haa's power, she destroys the monster all on her own, a major step in Ayer's grand plan. Hisui wants to grow up fast and stop being treated like a kid, but growing up isn't all it's cut out to be. When the girls take in Hisui, Mirai suggests they move in with her parents. On this visit, the series contrasts Hisui's rapid growth and bursting energy with Mirai's aging family. Her dad is slowly losing his eyesight, and her grandma's nursing a foot injury. While growing up can be exciting, eventually it all ends up one way. This brings us back to Ayer. Why is he the series villain? Well, because he's trying to escape death. Not just his own, but his mother's. Ayer was raised by a magician who came to Earth, and while she promised to stay by his side, soon life tore them apart. It's a microcosm of the show's themes. Is it worth going into the future when the end is always the same? Mirai's grandmother will only get weaker. Her dad's sight will diminish, and soon, Mofurun might even come undone. It's all kept very light, but the show is asking a lot of us. Ayer has incredible reasons for what he's done. Sure, it was kind of fucked up to give the girls ominous visions, and yes, he also kidnapped a child, but is he wrong? Doesn't the future suck? At least for this show, I can say that it does. Because the show hates good things, we have a twist villain. Look, up until now, I've painted the show as pretty competent, and it is, but Mirai Days has glaring issues that only get worse in the second half. All the things I've described to you are set up before episode 6. Halfway through the season, Ayer reveals his true plan: to steal Hee-chan's inherited power from Ha-chan, who got it from Mother or Papa. It doesn't matter, it's just goddess magic. And he's gonna feed it to this dog that he's been carrying. That's always been a pretty strange thing. I thought, is this dog one that he grew up with? Maybe it's a dog that's sick and he's trying to save its life. I'm not a better writer than anyone on this show, but I'm just gonna tell you what the actual reason is so wild and out of left field. This innocuous brown dog that we've been watching turns out to be the magical beast Chronosto, who can trap people in the beautiful past forever. Chronosto gives Ayer what he wants, and that is eternal time with his mother. So basically, halfway through a very sentimental show, a dog starts shooting laser beams and turns the main villain, the only interesting character so far, into a stone statue. And it's all downhill from here. Okay, also, Hee-chan is trapped and now Ha-chan is back. We'll get to that later. I really wanted to enjoy this, but we do have to acknowledge what the show was trying to do with Chronosto in order to critique the latter half properly. Chronosto is an interesting addition to the plot. I think it makes more sense that a magical beast could do all the timey-wimey magic that Ayer's been doing. To fully understand why Chronosto bothers me so much, we'd have to talk about what Chronosto does to the latter half of this show. The latter half's major focus is nostalgia, a longing for the past. Adulthood isn't all it's cracked up to be, and this is first explored through the character Sota. As a kid, Sota thought he would be a footballer. That's what he loved, and that's what he was good at. But instead, he's stacking bottles in an alley. Now, football is a distant dream, and the further he climbs the corporate ladder, the further he'll get from his dream. Chronosto tempts him with a beautiful past, and Sota gives in. This is where the monsters come from. Now, was this a good choice? I don't think so. I don't think a show with two main characters can really explore this. And it doesn't. It just doesn't go there. So, the previous monsters were manifestations of Ayer's memories, which is really interesting. I think you could piece together a lot of his life by looking at the monsters they chose. But the new monsters are just, oh, I used to be a footballer, so I'm gonna turn into a football statue. You know, there's a hilarious scene where one of the old magical professors turns into dentures. It just doesn't seem to take itself very seriously. And that's fine, but not when you've established that the show can do better than this. The girls arrive on the scene to defeat the monster and tell Sota that the future isn't all bad. This is an okay scene, but it's hilarious that it starts with Ha saying, "We'll be here for you." I mean, she quite literally wasn't. She was missing for years. I just think the series introduced a theme that was too hard to resolve with this setting and this character and this story. Think about the first half. As Hee-chan grows, Mirai's grandma withers away. This is the natural cycle. Mother Rapapa passed her power down to Ha, who passed it down to Hee. Mirai's grandmother is past her peak, while Hee has yet to reach it. It's such a grounded theme with an obvious message to take home. Appreciate the time you have with people, even if it ends. I know it's a good message because the show told me in the original series. I don't understand why the show introduced this magical time beast plot, even though the show is pretty solid. I think if the show had just kept going where it was going for the first 6 episodes, we would have been fine. Unfortunately, without any grounded theme to explore, and with something so nebulous as, oh, let's have the 3 characters whose names we can remember think about the past, the show is pretty boring. It devolves into honestly Family Guy levels of cutaway with how many flashbacks that we see. There's a lengthy sequence in the show where Mirai or Liko buys a hot pot, and then there's a random flashback, and then at the end of the episode they get to cook it together and they eat, and there's another flashback. And honestly, I can't tell you what either of those flashbacks were about because none of them ever connect. I don't know why the writing was so disjointed, but you might as well just cut all the flashbacks into their own little compilation for an AMV because they add less than anything to the plot past episode 6. With so little left to say, what did the series finale offer? So, basically, Chronosto, the magic time-eating dog, is hiding in between the magical world and the human one. When the girls confront him, he stops time itself, turning everyone into a statue. Everyone's trapped in the past they longed for, and soon enough, he traps the girls too. They're stuck in this memory space and can't figure out how to get out. Here it's revealed that this is where Ha-chan was, and that's when he was around. It's a little confusing, but she knows how to get out. That's what I'm trying to say. So how can you escape your memories? Well, by letting go. It's one of the more obvious points, and I will give the show credit for coming up with such a blunt explanation for them escaping. The girls let go by forgetting their memories, believing that they'll meet again. And even without them, the girls find their way to each other. It's kind of sad, but only in the Precure movie sense, by which I mean, it's the kind of thing that makes you sad for a few minutes, but there's no way this is going to have any impact. It's kind of just like, oh, okay, something sad's happening, but let's move on. I feel that part of the latter half's weakness is how many characters they have to explore. See, Mirai and Liko letting go of each other isn't as impactful because we already saw that in the original series. While watching this, I just kept thinking, it's almost like all the good parts of this show come from the first series, and that's a little disappointing. Otona Precure had 7 whole characters to explore, so it could explore, all kinds of things, people who've achieved their dreams, achieving your dream not being what you thought it was. I think that there was a lot more room to play around, but we have explored Mirai and Liko's bond for 50 episodes now. I don't think this was nearly half as interesting as it was trying to be. Let's just wrap it up. So, after that, they find each other, and it doesn't really matter. They're going to win. The message is generally that the future is exciting. In case you're concerned by the lack of detail I've spared for the finale, please note that it was about 2 episodes. It really wasn't a lot. Not much happens. So why does this show exist? It's a pretty bold question, but looking at the material covered, it's hard to say what they were going to add to Mahou Tsukai. Otona Precure was coming in as, a sequel to this really popular series, and we get to see where the characters are in life, we get to explore relationships, we get to see what happens after you achieve your childhood dream, we get to see how you have to balance your personal desires and professional needs. There's so much that came from that series, but at the end of this one, I honestly don't know what I had to say. When I started the script, I just didn't know if I had an opinion. And then I realized I did have opinions, lots of them, because there's so many interesting concepts that go to waste. We're not about to rewrite this because I don't think that's in the spirit of the channel. I think we're just going to look at some gaps which were glaring once you look at the series as a whole. So let's break down a few concepts I do think this show wasted. Alright, first up, Mirai is a university student. That's pretty interesting. Does it ever come up? Not really. The show has had lots of episodes, and by the show I mean all of Precure, has had lots of episodes where the girls have to balance their school life or professional life with Precure, but it never comes up for Mirai. She's just managing to attend all her classes, and I can guess she's doing the exams somehow. It's pretty boring too because she's basically a free-roaming adult. We don't see her in class too often. She's always in class and she has to run off. Her friends don't really do anything. The same is true for Liko's situation. She's a teacher, but outside episode 1, it really doesn't come up. I'm pretty sure we stopped seeing her teach very early on. Why wasn't there more variety in what the girls were doing? Especially in the second half, which desperately needed it. Another issue I had was the show being against living in the past, but dedicating half its time to flashbacks. That was crazy, right? This is a show about letting go of the past, and yet most of the runtime is just random scenes. Oh, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when this happened? It's not even tied to the story. We're not witnessing important moments like when they got a new power-up or something. It's just, oh, remember when they sat around and ate a bunch of corn? I just don't know why they prioritized this over anything else. The show is supposedly adult, but they never stop explaining things. It was pretty strange to me because this one felt decidedly more childish than Otona Precure.
I know that this is still a baby show, but you don't have to explain every single thing. It felt like they really had a younger audience in mind, which begs the question, why is this an adult series? Why not just, I don't know, throw them in the new movie? Why did Hee-chan disappear in the end, right? Not in the end, but halfway through. Hee-chan was set up as this big mystery. Oh, she inherited Ha-chan's powers, Ha-chan coming back, and then she just disappears and it's fine. A child literally vanished from the narrative and we're just... we're not even gonna talk about it. I know in the finale, Ha-chan says, oh, Hee-chan is with me. Whatever, she's not on screen and she never does anything, so I don't know why they kept Ha-chan out of the first half. It's one of the show's stranger aborted arcs, right? I really liked Hee's existence, and while I fully expected Ha-chan to return, her absence felt like intentional commentary on the cycle of life. You know, Ha-chan's little transformation speech is carefully just like, oh, something something reincarnation. That's like a theme. And it's interesting because the show's older characters do pass on their roles to new ones, right? So Gustav is a broom maker in the magical world, and he's getting too old to make brooms. And by the end of the show, he passes his role to Yamo the Lizard. He was a villain from the past series, right? Liko is becoming a teacher, and who knows, she might be the next principal. I think that was like a line in the end at the end of the original series. So it's interesting to think that Kocho, who is the current principal, will eventually be succeeded by Liko in the show. So there's a clear pattern in the show for older characters passing down their roles to younger ones. And this brings us back to Hee and Ayer, because these are the two new characters, the two major new characters. And I find their roles so bizarre, right? Both of them start out disconnected from their magical heritage. Ayer was born in the human world, so while his mom was a magician, he never became one. He never even got a wand because he was born on Earth. Hee-chan struggles with this too. Early on, she seems really upset that she can't use Cure Felice's magic. And when she finally does, Ayer says, with power like yours, you require no wand. Before breaking the wand she just used. I know we're getting rambly, but I promise, this is an interesting train of thought. Why introduce these two characters with this specific parallel? Hee-chan and Ayer are both people who have magical heritage, but both of them are disconnected from it. Hee-chan and Ha-chan can't exist at the same time, and Ayer cannot, Ayer's mom is dead, so clearly, right? And it's interesting that the first thing he does when he uses magic is break her wand. Is that because he didn't get one? I don't know, it's a very specific detail to put in there, which makes you think about how many parallels the show ignored. I'm not saying they should have done something there, but I'm just saying, when you look at a show do something like that, you have to wonder, where was that going, right? They wouldn't have set it up randomly. As it stands, Chronosto kind of feels like a movie villain, a big wall in the character's way. He's still connected to the theme of time, but just a little out of focus. Based on all the stuff they were setting up with Ayer, I think he would have made a much better final villain. Chronosto doesn't really challenge the girls in any personal way. I mean, really think about it. Does Mirai long for the past? I don't know. Her life seems pretty great. Her and Liko already got to meet again. There's not much left. Ha-chan is back. Mofurun is still alive. At best, her parents and grandparents are kinda old, and that's concerning, but it doesn't come up much. Is she that worried about confronting their death? And if so, why isn't this connected in any way to Ayer's own inability to accept his mother's death? The series sets up a lot of great parallels between Ayer and other characters, then just throws them away. Liko is another great example, right? Liko and her family are connected by magic. Her sister is a teacher at magical school, her dad is a magical explorer. You want to guess who isn't connected to their magical family? You guessed it, it's Ayer, because his mom died and he doesn't have a wand. Don't you think Liko would have some feelings about using dark magic to reunite with her mother? Isn't it interesting that one character is connected to their family with regard to magic and the other is disconnected from that? Doesn't it feel like these two parts of the plot should interact somehow? I guess not, because Ayer dies without saying much of value to the protagonists. I'm aware this is a bit speculative on my part, but it's just so bizarre to set up this much and have none of it connect. Do we ever address Ayer's view that time is a book with a set beginning and conclusion? Somewhat. The show does make an effort to show that the future can change if you just face it, but let's be honest, that's just a standard Precure lesson. Every season has something about, oh, the future is fine, even if it's different. It's just a shame that this is the best message the finale could muster. The kind of thing you'll see at the end of episode 11, 17, random filler with a side character? The show is truly less than the sum of its parts, because I cannot imagine how so many plot threads were left unconnected. These character arcs are divorced. There's no communication between them. There's so many things in this show that just feel like they should interact, and they don't. Characters will be going through the same arc or exploring the same feelings, and they'll never talk about it to each other. Nothing will happen. We had time for a million flashbacks of absolutely nothing. And I can't even say it was the budget, because they reanimated those scenes, right? They reanimated some of them. Some of these flashbacks seem original. So where was the focus? I think that's really the best way to describe Mirai Days. It is severely unfocused to a concerning level. I have seen bad Precure writing, and I have survived it. I have seen lazy Precure writing. I have seen irresponsible Precure writing. And I think this is somehow worse, because you can just tell that this could not be the best thing they could have put out. I don't want to blame anyone, because let's be honest, I don't know the staff, but how does a season like this get made? How do we get 12 episodes where nearly nothing happens, nearly no one changes, and you could essentially just skip to episode 12 and say, oh, so that's what everyone's up to. Cool. What happened? Did they get cold feet because the whole mortality theme was too heavy? Was Chronosto planned from the start? I really want to know how everyone felt about this, because the silence from the fandom is telling. I won't pretend you all agree with me, but I do think it's a little mixed, and maybe it wasn't distributed as widely. That was another reason that maybe people didn't talk about it, but I'm honestly confused. I've never put out a video feeling this mixed on a series, but I do hope you enjoyed watching me break it down. The biggest sin that Mirai Days commits is that it's a show that feels almost insulting to watch. Nothing goes anywhere, nothing changes, and truly nothing really matters. I don't think you even need to watch the show if you've watched this video, but I do think it would provide clarity, so you check it out if you think it's interesting. Overall, it's a rare case where you can genuinely understand a whole anime from a few GIFs. It's a unique low point in Precure too, because it's not bizarrely bad, right? It's just kind of meh. In a baby show where you can expect at least one big thing to happen each episode, it's bizarre that the adult shows struggle to find things to focus on. It's quite a disappointment. I feel robbed of my time watching this, and I can't wait to cover something else. If you want to see my work early or just get general channel updates, be sure to check out the Patreon for teasers and early releases. I look forward to seeing you in my next video, and I can promise you it'll be something pretty